All right. So we are going back to school today, Jamie.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
You know how
So
much I love school.
I do, which is weird. That should have been a flag, but I got this in the mail, which might be
From
backwards,
Charlie Kirk.
from Charlie Kirk. And I thought, what a great thing to do is go over the Constitution in layman's terms because I know I forgot it. I know you didn't, but I'm sure that most people are like me and don't really know the ins and outs of it. So let's do it for the American people and let's give them the Constitution in layman's terms. So today we're going to cover Article 1, sections 1 through 10. Are
I'm
you
glad we're
ready?
not trying to pack this all into one podcast.
Exactly. It might be too much for people. But all right, so let's break it down. So Congress is part of the US government, which writes federal laws. It is made up of two groups, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate. Their main job is to represent the American people in the states. They hash out issues through debates and pass bills. Those are once a bill gets through both the House and the Senate, it goes to the president. If the president signs it or if Congress overrides a veto with enough votes, that bill becomes a law. Picture Congress as a two-headed beast. You have the House is big, a loud head tied to population, and the Senate is smaller, the calmer one, giving every state an equal say. They're the nation's lawmakers, and Article 1 lays out how they roll. The House of Representatives is often just called the House. It is the people's house. It's got 435 voting members right now, and each state gets a number based on population. All of these folks serve 2-year terms, so they're always on their toes. They're trying to make a difference in as little time as they have, and they have the unique power to impeach officials. So then we have the Senate, which is dubbed the upper house. It's smaller with 100 members. There's 2 from each state, no matter how big or how small the state is. And the senators serve 6-year terms, which gives them a little more breathing room that makes the Senate steadier, less frantic body. But they do have special powers because they confirm big presidential picks like the Supreme Court justices or cabinet members, and they approve treaties with other countries. If the House impeaches someone, the Senate holds the trial, acting like jury. The vice president is technically the president of the Senate, but only votes to break ties. And the Senate's vibe is more deliberate, less chaos, more mature debate. So people say the House is where passions boil over and the Senate cools them down. So
One quick thing just on impeachment. So when people say somebody's impeached, people automatically think that, oh, that means they've been removed from office. If they've been
mhm.
impeached, it just means that they've been accused, quote, by the grand jury. So if the House is the grand jury, if you think of it from a law and order standpoint, and then the Senate, if they vote to in favor of impeachment, that is what removes an elected official from office. And we usually think of that as just presidential, but it's judges, and you could impeach cabinet members. You can impeach all kinds of federal officials, but it's the House that's the grand jury that makes the formal accusation, and the Senate who removes them.
Okay.
And in an impeachment, there was one small error: is in an impeachment, the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court presides over the US Senate, not the vice president. The vice president is the president of the Senate in every other case. But if the impeachment is the president of the United States, the vice president does not oversee that jury.
Oh, that makes
The,
sense.
the
Because
chief
he'd be
justice
like,
of the,
yes, impeach. I'm
yeah,
now going
now
to
I'm
be
president.
president.
Now I'm president. Yeah, exactly. So sorry to bog us down here on the very first thing, but just a few minor things of clarification just on impeachment and how that works.
Okay. All right. So, section 1, and we're going to go through these in layman's terms to make it easy. So, if you want to see the real wording, get the little thing, which is great. But this is all going to be layman's terms. So, section 1, Congress holds the lawmaking power. What it says is all power to make federal laws belong to Congress, which is split into the Senate and to the House of Representatives. That's it. So it's short, but it's massive, right? So what it means is only Congress can pass laws for the whole country. The president can't do it, and neither can the courts. This sets up the separation of powers, making sure no branch runs everything. It's the foundation of Congress as the voice of the people and states. So how this plays out. So back in 1930s, President Franklin Roosevelt, a Democrat, pushed his New Deal to fix the Great Depression. When courts struck down some parts, he got Congress to pass new laws to keep it going, sticking to Section 1. But in 1950, Harry Truman, another Democrat, sent troops to Korea without Congress declaring war. That's a legislative power, and Congress let it slide, setting a pattern where presidents start wars and Congress just nods. So let's fast forward to modern times. We have Barack Obama.
Technically, they're not wars, they're military actions, and Congress does nod by paying for them.
Okay. Paying for them monetarily?
Yes.
Okay. Fast forward to modern times when Barack Obama, frustrated with stalled Congress, used executive orders for stuff like immigration and climate rules, saying, I've got a pen and a phone. Republicans yelled he was bypassing Section 1. Then Donald Trump declared an emergency in 2019 to grab funds for his border wall after Congress refused the full amount. Democrats called it unlawful, saying he was stealing Congress's lawmaking role. Both stretch the line, presidents acting like they can make or shift laws when Congress won't play ball.
Yeah, so they're, everybody's going to push the lines of their powers, so certainly this is not exclusive to one party or one president.
Okay. Section 2, the House of Representatives, voice of the people. What it says is House members are elected every 2 years by the people in each state. You've got to be at least 25, a U.S. citizen for 7 years, and live in the state you represent. The number of reps per state depends on population, updated by census every 10 years. The House picks its own speaker and officers, and it's the only one that can impeach officials. What it means is the House stays close to voters with short terms and population-based seats. It's got the first say on taxes and can start the process to boot out bad actors in government. That 3/5 compromise about counting enslaved people, it's history now, wiped out by the 14th Amendment. How this plays out. Ever hear of gerrymandering? And I love this one. I read this. I didn't know about this. I probably did, but I forgot it. It kicked off in 1812 when Massachusetts Governor Eldridge Gerry, a Democratic Republican. How does that work?
Yeah, there was the Democrat, there was kind of a separation between Southern and Northern Democrats.
Okay. Signed off on a district map so it twisted like and looked like a salamander. The trick backing voters to favor his party stuck around. Today, both sides do it. After the 2010 census, North Carolina's Republican legislator drew maps to lock in 10 GOP seats out of 13. One guy bragged he'd have gone 11-2 if he could. It's legal, but messes with the fair representation idea in Section 2. The second thing is impeachment. Impeachment's a big deal here. In 1998, a Republican House impeached Democrat Bill Clinton over lying about an affair. Dems said it was petty politics. Then in 2019 and 2021, a Democratic House impeached Republican Donald Trump twice, once for pushing Ukraine to dig dirt on a rival, then for the January 6th Capitol riot. Republicans called it a witch hunt. Each time it was partisan brawl. Section 2's tool used more for scoring points than fixing high crimes.
Yeah, I was not supportive of any three of those presidential impeachments, including the impeachment of Bill Clinton. I agreed that it was, even at the time, distracting and took away from work that could have been done. But as far as Section 2 is concerned, we have, with gerrymandering, it's a double-edged sword, because in Florida, for instance, we have a fair district constitutional amendment that says, yes, the legislature can draw the maps, but the maps must be compact. They must make geographic sense. They have to have some racial balance, or, some racial history put into it. Although they don't say that, that's what they mean, and which is against the law. But that's how that. So there's probably two or three seats that are held by Democrats that would be held by Republicans if we could gerrymander. The problem is, in Democrat blue states, they still gerrymander. So in California, they have an overbalance of Democrats because they have a huge Democrat legislature. And people think that there's not Republican areas, but there's certainly large Republican areas in California. They just split them up and put them in more Democrat areas, so Democrats get more representation in Congress. New York is gerrymandered. So it's one of these things where truly the Fair Districts Amendment to the Florida Constitution is almost an equal protection violation, because our legislature isn't allowed free reign like California and New York to draw the lines that they want. And so it's everybody likes the idea of saying, oh, they should be fair, But the truth of the matter is, none of it's fair. If you put three judges on this panel and had them draw it, you would have partisan judges. We know that that's the case. Everybody thinks, oh, a judge is above partisanship, and we all know that's BS. And to go along with your Fierce AF podcast, that's what you should include in your BS section, is that the judges are partisan people. They have their own biases and they can't separate it.
This is BS.
That's right. It is BS. Thank you, Jamie, for chiming in.
Section 3, what it says is every state gets 2 senators, originally chosen by state legislators, but now by voters since the 17th Amendment in 1913. You need to be 30, a citizen for 9 years, and live in your state. The VP runs the Senate, but only votes on ties. The Senate picks its other leaders, like the president pro tempore, and it's the only body that tries impeachments, needing 2/3 to convict. What it means is the Senate balances things out: equal state power, longer terms, and big jobs like approving justices and holding trials. It's less about the mob and more about stability. So how this plays out. Senate confirmations can get ugly. In 2016, Republican leader Mitch McConnell refused to even consider Obama's Supreme Court pick, Merrick Garland, saying it was too close to an election 8 months out. Democrats fumed. Then in 2020, with weeks to go before the election, the same GOP Senate fast-tracked Trump's pick, Amy Coney Barrett. No rule was broken, but the flip-flop showed how partisan the Senate's advice and consent can get. Impeachment trials, don't expect impartiality. In Clinton's 1999 trial, in Trump's 2020 and 2021 ones, senators voted almost entirely by party. Nobody got 2/3 to remove. Section 3 wants them as jurors, but they're more like cheerleaders. History's got a rare hero, though. In 1868, Senator Edmund Ross broke ranks to save Andrew Johnson by 1 vote. Brave or bought, depends on who you ask.
Yeah. So the problem is that when the 17th Amendment changed the very nature of our country, and in a bad way. And because since the 17th Amendment, I forget what year that was, 19, whatever it was, and early 20th century.
1913.
Yeah. So that was when we went from state legislature electing U.S. senators to direct election by people. Of course, that makes sense, right? People want more votes. But what it took away was it diminished state rights, and there's been an erosion of state rights over the last 110 years, and that's going to be a problem in the next 110 years. And so we should repeal the 17th Amendment and go back to legislatures electing the U.S. Senate, because as it was originally intended, the U.S. House was supposed to represent people. It's so much so that if there's a vacancy in the House, in the Constitution, it says that there must be an election to replace them, that a governor cannot appoint. And we know that the U.S. Senate, a governor can still appoint, because we just had a vacant for U.S. Senate in Florida with Marco Rubio, and Governor Ron DeSantis appointed Ashley Moody. So there's real life examples. And because Matt Gaetz resigned and Michael Waltz went to National Security Advisor, we are having elections right now as we speak in Florida next Tuesday for both Jimmy Patronis in North Florida and Randy Fine in Northeast Florida.
Okay. So Section 4 is elections and meetings, keeping it regular. What it says is states decide how, when, and where to hold elections for Congress, but Congress can step in and change those roles if needed. Congress has to meet at least once a year, now set for January 3rd by the 20th Amendment. What it means is states run the show on elections, but Congress has a veto to keep things fair. The yearly meeting ensures lawmakers don't slack off like they did under the old Articles of Confederation. How this plays out. Congress used Section 4 to set Election Day as the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, standardizing what used to be state-by-state mess. In the 1960s, they passed the Voting Rights Act to stop Southern states from blocking Black voters, big federal muscles over state rolls. After 2020, election fights heated up. Republicans in some states tightened voting laws, IDs, less mail voting, saying it stopped fraud. Democrats pushed federal bills to override that, claiming it's suppression. Trump's crew argued state courts extending mail deadlines, like in Pennsylvania, broke Section 4's legislator decides rule. Courts mostly let it stand, but the tension's real.
Yeah, there's no question that specifically the governor of Pennsylvania, not the current sitting governor, but the previous governor in 2020, broke election laws because the Pennsylvania legislature had the opportunity to require that everybody get a mail-in ballot during COVID, and they chose not to take action. And so the governor, in his infinite wisdom, decided to break the law and send mail-in ballots to every single voter in the state, probably costing Donald Trump the state. And so what Democrats have tried to do with voting over years and years, you have to have more voters if you're gonna mine extra votes. And so certainly with Donald Trump's executive order just today or just yesterday, and the Substack will go out Friday about this, Trump, and all of these rules are just towards federal elections, but Donald Trump is requiring a voter ID that includes a citizenship clause. So the driver's license alone won't work anymore unless your driver's license shows that you're a U.S. citizen. You can use your passport.
How does your driver's license show you're a U.S. citizen?
So Florida tried to pass a law saying that your driver's license would have, where you have male, female, it would say U.S. citizen, yes or no. And so it would allow green card holders to have the legal ability to drive, but show their citizenship, and it should. And so we're gonna see that change. The other one is only U.S. citizens will be allowed to vote in federal elections, and the other is all ballots for federal elections must be received by the federal election day that's determined by the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And so, which is the first Tuesday after the first Monday in even numbered years. And so we're going to see that. And the interesting thing here is that things that I've advocated for are not included in Donald Trump's executive order, like same-day registration, because that is a state rule. And so even Donald Trump in his executive order decided to leave that alone and just say, hey,
what do you mean by same day registration?
So in some states, not Florida, but for instance, Wisconsin, Minnesota, if you're not registered to vote, you can go in on election day and register to vote and vote. You can take
why do you not like that?
Well, because how do you know it? Number one, it's wrong to ask a fellow citizen to determine another citizen's eligibility. It's just wrong. It's like asking a juror to be a lawyer to be
what if the ID changes? Like if the ID shows that they're U.S. citizen and all of that.
You still don't register the same day and get to vote. Like that's just, it's the onus is too large. It's like asking a juror to be the lawyer for a defendant. Like they're not qualified to make the determination if another citizen is qualified or not. Let's say they bring in some other form of ID. We know that in the one case that blew up in this last election was University of Michigan student goes and votes. He's 18 years old. He takes his college ID down. He looks at fellow citizen in the face and says, hey, here's my college ID with a picture. And okay, sure, you can vote. He goes back and tells all his friends, he's like, hey, I voted. I'm so happy. It's my first time ever voting in America. It's great. And they're like, you broke federal law. They can deport you for that because you're from China. You're a Chinese citizen. You don't get to vote. And so the guy was literally he was awestruck that he broke the law, number one. So he goes back to the precinct and says, hey, I want my vote back because I think I illegally voted because I'm not a U.S. citizen. Well, then a poll watcher says, well, there's somebody who's a non-citizen who voted. And then they come out and okay, so there's police are called. It's a big brouhaha. And this kid, in this particular case, this kid made an honest mistake. But it proves also the point that I've made for 25 years that, once an illegal ballot is cast, it becomes a legal vote. Because while they chastised this kid a little bit, they slapped him on the wrist as they should have. He wasn't running a voter fraud operation. He was happy to experience the American experience. And
right.
And the laws in Michigan allowed him, they're so lax that a fellow citizen could not even stop this person from registering to vote and casting a ballot. And so the kid's like, I want my ballot back so it doesn't count. Well, of course he can't get it back. It's already been voted. And so we're never going to take a vote out of that pile. So we know that one illegal vote was counted in Michigan. And we know that happens all the time. So I'm not sure where we started with this, but the Voting Rights Act certainly expanded federal authority and punishment for federal elections. Certainly, states are allowed to run their own elections.
I don't even understand that. Like, I still just don't understand how everything is not the same way in every state. Everybody is voting for one person. So how do you not have all 50 states working the same exact way? Like, the
Well, for
rules are the
instance,
same.
Donald Trump's order does not even say that legal and illegal immigrants cannot vote. There's some states and cities that have decided that, hey, if you're here illegally, you should be able to vote because you should have the right to decide whether there's a playground in your community. You're paying taxes here or whatever. I disagree with that. But Donald Trump said, he did say in federal elections, you can't have legal and illegal immigrants vote. But if a state law changes and says you want to have legal and illegal immigrants vote, go ahead. But now those states are going to have to decide the bureaucracy of that. Are we going to provide two different ballots?
Right.
And then make sure that only the non-citizens get one ballot, the local ballot, and only citizens get the federal ballot? Now there's a whole different level of election fraud that can happen in precincts.
I just came up with another brilliant idea.
Okay, let's have it.
So if they do it by ID and they change the ID to show that everybody's a US citizen, they have special machines that are created just for that. You stick your ID into it and then you can vote for federal. If you don't have your ID and it's not right, then forget it.
There's tons of ways we can do
Jamie,
this.
that's a brilliant idea.
It is a brilliant idea.
You're oversimplifying it.
It's so complicated and beautiful. It's a wonderful idea,
It's
baby.
a perfect idea. I mean, you get a card to stick into an ATM machine to get money out. Why can you not have
They have the same thing to check IDs at bars. You just run it through the machine and it says, oh, you're 21 or you're not. So it should say, oh, you're a citizen.
That's just because bouncers can't do math. And I couldn't either. I wouldn't be able to tell that either. But
it's not
yeah,
math.
I think
you only have to remember the year. It's usually written on the wall of the bar.
It's a perfect idea. Federal machines should be different, and you need to stick your ID in order to be able to do it. So now we don't need fingerprinting. Now we got it. It's all taken care of.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
You're a genius. Let's push it.
Section 5.
Let's go.
All right. Section 5. Congress sets its own rules. What it says is a majority of members make a quorum to do business. Each chamber writes its own rules, keeps a public journal of what happens, with some secrets allowed, and can't break for more than 3 days or move without the others okay. They can punish or expel members with 2/3 vote. What it means is Congress polices itself, sets how it works, stays transparent, and keeps people in line. It's about independence and accountability. So how this plays out. In the 1800s, the House minority would dodge roll call to kill quorums and stall votes. In 1890, Speaker Thomas Reed said enough and counted anyone in the room. Dems hid under desks, but he won. His Reed's rule made the House functional again. The Senate's filibuster, a role not in the Constitution. In 2013, Democrats axed it for most judges to push Obama's picks. Republicans did the same in 2017 for Gorsuch. Both used Section 5's power, but it trashed old norms. Each side screamed when they weren't in charge.
Yeah, so this is where I came up with the brilliant idea that Congress should change its rule to make sure that states make laws for free, fair, and transparent elections. And so they should include no voter registration, same day registration. They should include no illegals can vote. And they can do this by rule because Section 5 allows it, where they say that if you are from a state that doesn't have a free, fair, and transparent election defined by those 2 or 3 things, then you are not seated. We're not seating anyone, Democrats or Republicans, from that state for organizational session. And Section 5 is what allows this type of thing to happen, where they could say, we're not going to seat you. So nobody from your state, like California. The other thing they should say is you have to report your results within 24 initial results within 24 hours. Donald Trump's executive
by
order
midnight
does not cover that.
Don't even do anything. Don't show election night. Don't do anything. Nobody knows who won or who is losing until midnight. Period.
Midnight in what time period? What time zone?
That time period. Election night. Midnight.
Whatever time zone you're in.
Whatever time zone you're in.
The East Coast can start announcing election results 3 hours to influence the California election.
No.
So you're saying it should be 3 a.m. on the East Coast, midnight in California.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
about Hawaii? So now it's 6 a.m.
Semantics, wherever
No,
we
it's
can get
practical
everybody on board.
application. It's not semantics. It's how does it actually
Okay,
gonna work?
6 a.m. Eastern time, everything gets rolled out the next
Okay, the
day.
next day. Okay, I
Yes.
can go with that.
Okay.
Okay, so if so, Donald Trump's executive order doesn't even cover that, but you would keep. Where was I at? You interrupted me with midnight. You said yeah, midnight.
You got
I
to
lost
stay
my
with it, man.
place.
I didn't
Huh?
know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
about sessions, about voting and letting people in sessions and all of that. You've said it.
you would not be able to. You would make sure that people are not seated, and they would
Yes, they don't get
not be
votes.
eligible to run for speaker, vote on speaker, and you would have states fix this problem immediately.
Correct. Okay, Section 6, members' rights and restrictions. What it says is Congress folks get paid from the Treasury. They can't be arrested during session except for serious crimes and can say what they want in debate without lawsuits. They can't take other federal jobs created or boosted in pay during their term, and no one in another branch can join Congress. What it means: it protects lawmakers from harassment and keeps them honest, no double dipping or rigging cushy gigs for themselves. How it plays out: the speech or debate clause saved Senator Mike Gravel in 1971 when he read the Pentagon Papers aloud in a hearing. Government couldn't touch him. It's a shield for free talk. When you want a cabinet job, if Congress raised the pay while you're in office, you're out. Unless they fix it. Nixon cut the Attorney General's salary for Senator Zaxby in 1973. Obama did it for Hillary Clinton in 2009. It's a loophole around Section 6, no new jobs rule. That one was hard to read.
Yeah, so this is how cool our founding fathers were. They were so afraid of the majority that they were concerned that the majority would round up the minority and have them arrested, or vice versa, depending on who was friends with the police. That they put it in the Constitution that you could not be arrested during congressional session. How how funny is that?
Who knows what was going on back then? We
Yeah,
thought it
listen,
was bad now.
they
There
didn't have
must have been some
phones.
shit
It's
going
like,
down.
hey, they're hiding under desks, so they're not counted.
Oh my gosh.
Man, it had to be fun to be in Congress back then, right? Like, it sounds pretty freewheeling.
Well,
That
I mean,
it's
it's not
kind of
it's
like, oh, we
televised.
have to
There's no
limit
video.
we have to
Yeah.
limit our members from having each other arrested during votes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. Section 7, how bills turn into laws. What it says is tax bills start in the House, but the Senate can tweak them. Every bill needs both chambers. Then goes to the president, sign it, veto it, or let it sit. If vetoed, 2/3 in both can override. If Congress adjourns and the president doesn't sign in 10 days, it's a pocket veto. It's dead. What it means: it's the recipe for laws. House, Senate, president all get a say. Checks and balances keep one branch from dominating. How this plays out: the Affordable Care Act started as a House tax bill, but the Senate gutted it and stuffed in Obamacare. Critics said it broke the taxes start in the House rule. Courts shrugged and let it ride. Vetoes are rare to beat. Congress overrode Ford in 1974 for FOIA, Reagan in 1988 for civil rights, and Obama in 2016 for a 9/11 lawsuit bill. Takes guts and unity, doesn't happen often.
Yeah, so FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act, and yeah, and should be hard to override a veto. There should be some level of consensus, and it keeps, for instance, right now, if let's say, for instance, you had a Democrat president, but you had a Republican House and Senate. Well, keeps that from just plowing through and over people, and you still have. People are like, oh, well, the president's Republican, so of course they're all going to get along. And we now, you see that, when it comes to spending bills, which is the major thing that Congress is supposed to do, even though they haven't passed all 12 appropriation bills since 1997. They argue about all this because everybody wants either their power or their piece of the pie, or they have, certain state has dairy farmers, others have sugar farmers, and so even the Even those who are major farm states don't necessarily all see eye to eye, because somebody might be vegetables, somebody else is cattle, all of these different things. And so it really is a pretty imperfect, perfect balance to ensure that, yes, things can get done, but it's hard to get anything done, and it should be.
Okay. Section 8, Congress's power list. What it says is Congress can tax, spend, borrow, regulate trade, coin money, set up courts, declare war, raise armies, and more. The necessary and proper clause lets them do what's needed to make it all work. What it means is this is Congress's toolbox, specific powers but flexible. It's if it's not here or in amendments, it's supposed to stay with states. So how this plays out. The Commerce Clause went from trade rules to monster power. FDR's New Deal, 1960 civil rights law, even marijuana bans all lean on it. Courts pull it back a bit. In 1995, guns near schools, but it was still huge. War on Congress, but presidents run it. No declaration since 1941, Korea, Vietnam, Libya. All executive
So
moves.
we had war actions without a declaration of war.
Okay. All executive moves with Congress winking or whining. The 1973 War Powers Act tried to fix that. Presidents still dodge it.
Yeah, so Congress still has to pay for the war, or war actions like we have in Afghanistan or Vietnam, but naturalization of citizens is here, in this, where Congress can determine the naturalization of citizens. You have a lot of, this allows a lot of broad power to Congress, but it also limits it, because if it's not enumerated here, it doesn't exist in Congress. And so, for instance, it says we must have a navy here. It also is the reason why Ron DeSantis's bill this spring to basically set up his own immigration, because Congress can the naturalization of citizens comes under Congress, and this particular section, what Ron DeSantis was pushing, was likely a violation of the Constitution in this very particular section.
Okay.
Because it's enumerated in this section, a state cannot do it.
Okay. Section 9, what Congress can't do. What it says is no slave trade banned before 1808, no suspending habeas corpus unless rebellion, no targeting people with laws or retro crimes, no export taxes, no favoritism, no spending without approval, no titles or foreign gifts without consent. What it means is it limits Congress to protect rights, fairness, and federal unity, no playing favorites or acting like tyrants. How this plays out. Lincoln suspended habeas in 1861 to nab rebels. Courts said only Congress can. Post 9/11 Guantanamo detainees fought for it. Supreme Court said it stands. Trump's money wall grab and Obama's ACA payments without Congress, courts slap both down. Section 9 says the purse is Congress's.
Yeah, and it's sort of a list of things that Congress cannot do. It talks about the census, the enumeration of people that, I think this is where it says a census must be taken every 10 years, and it's paid for by Congress regardless. So Congress can't say, oh, you know what, we've had the California gold rush and all these citizens moved to California, but we're going to skip the census this year. So they decided, our founding fathers, in their infinite wisdom, decided, and they were very worried about jail here. You can't just arrest somebody without due process by delaying habeas corpus. And so it's kind of interesting to kind of go back and listen to this or read it and go, okay, well, these guys had a healthy dose of paranoia. It's because these things were happening back in that time, and they haven't happened. And so we take it for granted. And the ability to arrest your political opponents, even though Nancy Pelosi tried to illegally impeach a president. And you could argue that Republicans tried to illegally impeach Clinton over, quote, lying to Congress, but it really wasn't about lying to Congress. It was about the affair in the Oval Office. So,
Okay.
but yeah.
All right. Section 10, states don't get to play king. What it says is states can't make treaties, money, retro laws, mess with contracts, or start wars unless invaded. No tariffs or deals with other with others without Congress saying yes. What it means is it keeps states in check. Federal government runs the big stuff, no state mini kingdoms. How it plays out. The Confederacy in 1861, treaties, money, war, all Section 10 no-nos. They lost, proving states can't break free. Missouri's 2021 gun law tried to nullify federal rules. Courts killed it. Sanctuary states dodge immigration help, but don't cross Section 10.
Yeah, they probably do by having sanctuary cities say that they're breaking federal law. For instance, I believe it was Texas. I think this was a section. I'd have to go do a little bit more research, but remember, Texas decided to put barbed wire on its border to keep immigrants out. And Biden's like, no, you can't do that. Well, this is kind of the section where Texas said, well, yeah, we can, because we can control our own border because we're being invaded. Like, this word invaded means somebody you don't want coming illegally across your state. And so they were able to use Section 10 here to put up the barbed wire and keep it up.
Okay. All right. So that is the end of our sections. So presidents grab, parties twist, states push. Article 1's rules are solid on paper, but people bend them like pretzels. So what's reasonable? Is Congress still king, or are we letting it slip? So I think that anybody listening to this, if they have any comments or any questions or anything like that, let us know and let's argue
Well,
it
it's
out,
not
right?
Congress is still king, because it's a three-way balancing act. It's a three-level, a three-planked seesaw almost. So yeah, sometimes the courts pull a little bit more and they're taking over. Sometimes the executive branch has a little bit more pull, certainly during times of war. And then sometimes Congress has a little bit more pull. And so it's constantly seesawing back and forth. And that's what makes it an imperfect perfection.
All right. All right. Well, with that, we will be back next week with Article 2, I guess, and going through those sections. So we'll see you then.
All right. Sounds great.
This has been Reasonable Arguments News and Nonsense. There is so much BS on the mainstream media news, but you knew that. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. See you next time as husband and wife duo Jamie and Jennifer keep it real on Reasonable Arguments.